Hello everyone, my name is Miriam and welcome back to my channel.
Oh, hello. Yes?
Today we're here entering again film noir territory to pay a special tribute to one of noir's most legendary, most representative figures, and I'm talking about Gloria Grahame, who this year would turn 100 years old, so that in itself deserves a celebration. And especially Gloria Grahame is definitely a performer who rightfully deserves her own special tribute, and that's what I'm going to do today in this video. I'm going to be exploring some of her most remarkable roles in film noir, her significance, and her iconic contributions. If you have watched many classic film noir examples, or if you're also a fan of classic film, chances are you've seen several Gloria Grahame performances, and it is especially in film noir where she felt at home for quite a few years, especially from the end of the 1940s up to mid-1950s, playing different roles, some femme fatales, other times her end was fatale.
Well, isn't that sweet? Isn't that just too sweet?
But in practically all cases, with a few exceptions, she played roles that exuded with a mysterious charm and ambiguity, mixed with her own distinguishing sensuality and also a playful naivete, where her trademark raising eyebrows and impassive but resolute glance were synonymous with a certain female representation in Hollywood that she championed. Truly a study in contrasts, and it was in that juxtaposition of seemingly opposite characteristics or traits that she would thrive, and that would pave the way for other actresses that came later.
Can't I flirt with you a little?
Gloria Holworth got to become Gloria Grahame the moment she signed a 7-year contract with MGM in 1944 after getting her film debut with the comedy Blonde Fever with Marshall Thompson and Mary Astor. MGM initially didn't quite know what to do with her. As it was the case with other actors and actresses of the era, they struggled getting parts as studios didn't quite know how to market them. That's exactly what happened with Gloria, and that lasted until Frank Capra had the brilliant idea to cast her as the unforgettable Violet Bick in It's a Wonderful Life. She was the last to be cast, and it was a part that was a breakthrough for her.
Excuse me.
Oh, wait a minute.
I think I got a date.
That part put her on the map with a type of character she would be most recognized for in subsequent movies. After another bit part in Frank Sinatra's musical It Happened in Brooklyn, she finally got 2 roles in films released in 1947 that were finally beginning to have more substance. And of those 2 roles, one was in the last film of the Thin Man series, Song of Thin Man, in which she plays a hard-boiled singer, and the other one, the most important one, was in Crossfire, a movie that I have talked about in this channel, in which she played Gene Tierney, a part for which she would be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, and also her favorite of all the parts she played. It was in this Edward Dmytryk film in which she would begin to find her footing in film noir, and she would really begin, as I said before, to feel at home with this type of movies.
What do you do when you're not working for a living?
How to live.
She was witty, she was sulky. This was a big break for her career, almost in a way as it has been mentioned before. It is as though her part in Crossfire was like the B-side of Violet Bick in It's a Wonderful Life. It's like 2 sides of the same coin. This movie was for RKO, a studio where she would eventually land after parting ways with MGM. In RKO, Gloria would participate in a movie called A Woman's Secret, released in 1949, in which she would be directed by Nicholas Ray. They would eventually marry, and they would go on to collaborate with one of film noir's most iconic, most legendary films, In a Lonely Place, an independent production of Santana Pictures, a film production company founded by Humphrey Bogart and distributed by Columbia Pictures. This movie was almost the staple noir for the doomed romance and self-destructive characters. In a similar way, Gloria's and Nicholas Ray's marriage would collapse, and they would divorce a couple couple of years later. This movie would be released in 1950, the same year Sunset Boulevard was released, and both films also happen around Hollywood and have to do with the industry. So they are both tremendous pictures that were released at a very specific time in Hollywood history. Another big year for Gloria was 1952, a year in which she released 4 movies, 2 of them winning major acclaim, and the other are 2 B movies that I happen to love out of her filmography.
Then I like it.
Oh, I think it'll make a dreamy picture, Mr. Steele. What I call an epic.
What do you call an epic?
So, in 1952, she would go on to appear in Cecil B. DeMille's The Greatest Show on Earth, one of those DeMille epics with an A-list cast, a film that would eventually win an Oscar for Best Picture, not a favorite of mine, I have to say. And the other major production in which she appeared in 1952 was The Bad and the Beautiful, a film back at MGM, directed by Vincente Minnelli, for which she received an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress, probably an award she had previously earned for prior performances. But in true Oscar fashion though, she got it for, at the time, the shortest performance ever to win an Academy Award, a little over 9 minutes in total. So that was quite an achievement, but the 2 movies I want to pay a little bit more attention to because they tend to be overlooked are the B films Macau and Sudden Fear, with also once again Gloria playing 2 small yet memorable parts in both films. The first one, Macau, was a vehicle for 2 of the hottest stars of RKO at the moment, Robert Mitchum and Jane Russell. Gloria wasn't keen on playing the role that she was offered in Macau, and she had a particular interest in playing the role that went eventually to Shelley Winters in George Stevens' A Place in the Sun. That was the role that she wanted to play but couldn't because she was under contract then for RKO, and Howard Hughes planted her in Macau. Macau would turn out to be the last movie she would make for RKO. And even though, as I said, she was reluctant to play the part of Margie in Macau, still she would create a performance, this sensual, playful woman who would start, let's say, at the wrong side of the story. This probably wasn't the easiest shooting, but definitely the final product is an entertaining film noir. The other noir thriller that I really love was Southern Fear, a movie starring Joan Crawford and Jack Palance, a very odd pairing but very effective in this engaging, thrilling and suspenseful movie. We find again in Sudden Fear Gloria playing the scheming, sensual but tragic role of Irene, who is the former flame of the part played by Jack Palance. This is for me one of the most engaging film noir thrillers of the 1950s, especially the ending is quite amazing, and if you haven't yet seen it, I highly encourage you to do so. This was also an independent production distributed by RKO, for which Joan Crawford got a percentage of the grossings of this movie, which turned out to be a fortune because Sudden Fear was a box office hit, so successful that from that moment on she used the same financial setup for the rest of her career. Joan Crawford also received her 3rd and final Oscar nomination for Best Actress, and although she was initially against the casting of Jack Palance for the male lead,
Scott, I've watched him from every section of this theater. And I'm sorry, but he's just not right for the part.
and her relationship with Gloria Grahame wasn't the best either, but the final result, the film, is fantastic in my opinion. Gloria stands her own against Joan Crawford, and paired with Jack Palance, she gives out the necessary ambiguous kind of attitude that is very much needed in the film. From that point on, she would sign a contract with 20th Century Fox, and in 1953 she would release one of the films that I think define her contribution in film noir. In my opinion, her best performance in a film noir classic, as I'm referring to The Big Heat, released in 1953 and directed by Fritz Lang, starring Glenn Ford, Jocelyn Brando, and Lee Marvin. The role of Debbie Marsh showcased her remarkable talent for bringing complexity to these characters she played in film noir.
Why don't we stop the cross-examination? I didn't come up here to talk out of school.
Why did you come up?
Well, why don't we call it research or something?
her performance in The Big Heat remains as a testament to her ability to make every scene she's handed truly unforgettable. I've also discussed this movie in a previous video, so I highly encourage you to watch that video if you haven't already, and also to watch The Big Heat if you have never watched it. This is such a timeless noir masterpiece that went a little bit under the radar when it was first released, but that over time has gained more and more appreciation and critical acclaim.
I must have broken one of the house rules. You really want me to go?
This film was, I think, the peak of her career in film noir, but still in 1954 we have two films of hers that are very worth mentioning, such as Human Desire and Naked Alibi. This last one in particular is another favorite of mine. This was a Ross Hunter, of all people, production in which Gloria plays yet again a very similar position to the one she has in The Big Heat again, with a character introduction playing a nightclub singer that is really worth paying attention to. She is surrounded here by Sterling Hayden, always a much welcome presence, and she is opposite Gene Barry in this case. Human Desire would be her last more prominent role in a film noir classic. It would also reunite her with filmmaker Fritz Lang and Glenn Ford, adding Broderick Crawford to the mix. It was an adaptation of Émile Zola's novel The Human Beast, which had been previously adapted in 1938 in a fine French film starring Jean Gabin and Simone Simon. It would not be until several years later, in 1959, when Gloria would appear again in another film noir, in this case Odds Against Tomorrow, a film produced by Harry Bell Productions, a company founded by the film's star, Harry Belafonte, and directed by Robert Wise. In it, Gloria Grahame has a bit part reminiscent of her previous work in film noir. Its brilliant cast also includes Robert Ryan, Ed Begley, Shelley Winters, or Kim Hamilton, and it tells the story of a very unlikely team attempting to rob a bank. Incidentally, frustrated heist movies are one of my favorite film noir subgenres. Odds Against Tomorrow is for many reasons another fine film noir that you can't miss if you haven't discovered it already. Throughout this video, I've been discussing mainly Gloria's supporting performances. For one, I'm amazed at how much she was able to accomplish playing a supporting role, which is also a way for me to appreciate supporting actors, particularly in classic Hollywood and in general. Supporting actors tend to give the most unforgettable and impactful performances in films, and Gloria really is one of the perfect examples of that.
You've got your career to think about, and a girl can't be a camp follower and a bit player all at the same time.
You know, Eddie, your conversation becomes more stupid every time I see you.
There you have it. Gloria Grahame was for sure one of the queens, one of the muses of film noir. That wraps up this video dedicated to Gloria Grahame. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that you found some movies that you would love to watch if you haven't already, or rewatch this November. So enjoy watching. Thank you so much for your support, and until next time, all the best to all of you. Bye!
I am happy. Flowers give me hay fever. Excuse me.